Every rider remembers their first months on a motorbike. The excitement, the nerves, and the mistakes you only realise afterwards. Today, I want to talk about the things that I really wish someone had told me before I started riding. So welcome back everyone to Talks and Tales. This week we've got things I wish that someone told me before I started riding. It's quite a simple topic, but something that I know will resonate with absolutely everyone, from beginners all the way to seasoned veterans. I'll tell you some of the mistakes I made and some of my opinions along the way. So the first one then, gear mistakes. And the takeaway here is good gear good gear feels expensive until you actually need it. So I think the first port of call is buying cheap gear. Now we've all been there. We've all done it. You know, when cash has been a bit strapped or we've just got onto the motorbike, we've spent thousands on doing our license, thousands on buying the bike, and we think, you know what, I'm a bit strapped for cash right now. But this is one thing that we just shouldn't really skimp on, is gear. I've done it. I go into a motorbike accessory store, J&S, Jordan Bikes, there's loads of them up and down the country. And you go in, you see a nice helmet, and you think, it's £100. That's within budget. And you put it on, and it either feels too slack or it feels too tight. And just for anyone that's never tried a motorbike helmet on before, stick it on, this is the way I've been told anyway, it's one thing I've always done for decades, is stick the helmet on and then grab the chin piece and you move it side to side. If you feel your head moving, that's your first tick. If you feel the helmet moving and your head staying where it is, it's too bloody slack. Change it, get a smaller one. The other thing then is sometimes it can be too tight and it can be uncomfortable. So this is where I feel like I sometimes turn into a bit of a Burke and I end up spending an hour or so walking around a motorbike shop, and I walk around with the helmet on. And yeah, you do look like an idiot, but walk around, get to feel the helmet. Is it too tight? Do your cheeks start to hurt? At that point, take the damn thing off and try a slightly bigger size. Now, for me personally, the way you can tell from a cheap helmet to a more quality helmet, if you like, is after you've worn it for a while, and by that point you can't take it back. But if it feels just about right, you go for a ride in it, you spend a couple of weeks, couple of months riding around in it, and all of a sudden it feels slack as a bag of knackers and it's moving around your head. And I honestly think that that's probably just down to cheap materials. The padding degrades a lot quicker and it ends up just feeling like bloody horrible. You do your lifesaver check and the helmet keeps going. At that point you need to be changing that helmet. Personally, I think I've shown in the past I've got HJC and I love that helmet. It's an awesome helmet, and there's plenty of others out there, but I love it. It's not. I've had it now a couple of years, and it doesn't feel like it's slackened off much. And for me, that's a really good sign for a good helmet. And one thing to always bear in mind is check for the gold sticker on the back. Without that, you can't do any track days. Buy decent gear. And then I think the one that is always missed, and to be honest, I think it should be talked about, especially in your CBT, especially doing your direct access or your motorbike license, is noise, hearing protection. I know, I sound like an old man, but it is genuinely really, really important. When you're riding a motorbike, and this is a mistake that I've made, so I'm just letting you guys know, for the people that are just starting out, just get some hearing protection. You jump on a motorbike, people always think to yourself, it's the noise from the engine, noise from the exhaust, that's what's causing hearing damage. It's not. It's the wind noise. You sit on a motorway or a dual carriageway for 60, 70 miles an hour for any long periods of time, the decibel, you're going to be over 100 decibels, of noise just from wind alone, and that can cause some serious hearing loss. I now suffer from tinnitus, and I do have a little bit of hearing loss. So yeah, definitely invest in some hearing protection. You can go with the foam ones; they work. To be honest, I was getting frustrated with them, always falling out, never feeling comfortable. So I actually ended up getting a set of these. I love these. These are honestly amazing. They are custom, if the camera focuses, custom fit guards, and there's other guys that do them as well, but these are custom fit guards, and they're personally molded to your ears. They won't work for anyone else's ears. These ones are really cool. So these have actually got a Bluetooth connection in them, so I can listen to a bit of music. Again, probably a Marmite subject, but a little bit of music on those longer trips, or even just using it for sat nav, so you can hear the instructions coming through if you are in a place that you don't really know very well. But yeah, must hit ear protection. It's absolutely crucial. And then the other thing as well is, and this is where motorbiking isn't cheap, you know. Most people, and I say most people, some people will ride in all conditions, in summer all the way through to winter. Now, I don't tend to ride that much through the winter anymore. I used to, but no, I don't tend to ride as much through the winter. If we get a nice sunny day, I'll definitely take the bike out, and it's always bloody crisp as well, but it's good fun. But your gear changes from what you're riding in the summer to what you're riding in the winter. And unfortunately, you're going to have to buy 2 or 3 sets of gear, making sure you've got lots and lots of layers. The one thing for me that's always been really important is keeping your hands warm. As soon as your hands get cold, you start to lose that dexterity, you start to lose the control on your brake and your clutch and your throttle. And at that point, you need to stop and warm those hands up, because it is absolutely crucial that you have that feel and that control. I really struggle actually with wearing thick gloves in the winter. I just don't like it. I don't feel like I have that kind of feel on the brakes and the clutch. So I personally sacrifice. I wear thinner gloves just so I get that feel on the brakes and the clutch. But I have heated grips, so they do tend to keep my hands a little bit toastier. Jeans. I learned the hard way with this one. I'll be totally honest. I learned the hard way. I do wear Kevlar jeans if I am going on a shorter trip. So if I'm just going from here where I live in Bradford over to Leeds, or I'm doing a very, very short trip, I will tend to wear my Kevlar jeans, making sure they've got the armour in the knees and the hips. But if I am out riding, even it's summer or winter, and I know that I'm doing a reasonable journey, a good couple of hours, I might be going to the coast or going over to North Yorkshire Moors or the Pennines or wherever, I will wear full gear. I don't wear just normal jeans. I've made that mistake in the past where I've come off, and you very, very, very quickly go through a set of normal jeans, and trying to pull denim out of an open wound is not pleasant. Trust me on that one, it is not pleasant at all. I say there laughing, I've still got the scars on my bloody knees to prove it, but yeah, not pleasant at all. So yeah, wear gear. As what's the phrase? Ride for the what is it? Dress for the slide, not the ride. Quite a good little phrase that. I quite like it. And the next one is confidence versus skill. Confidence grows a lot quicker than your skill levels. And again, this one is from my own experience, especially in my early days moving up from the 125 to a 600. It is quite a big jump. Those first few months will feel, when you first start riding, feel amazing. Like they do. You feel like you're on top of the world. You feel like you're the next Valentino Rossi, the next Marc Marquez. But you very, very quickly you sometimes can end up putting yourself in situations where you're overestimating your ability, you're cornering a bit too fast, and then you end up panic braking. I had a very, very interesting experience of that when I first started moving from the smaller bikes to the bigger bikes. Now, bear in mind, I'd been riding for 6-7 years. Yeah, 6-7 years before I moved to a 600cc. I'd ridden motocross, I'd ridden mopeds, 125s, and I still made that same rookie mistake, and I don't think people really understand or comprehend the jump from a 125 to a 600cc bike. You can easily get yourself in a bit of bother. I ended up cranking it over on a double left apex, caught the first apex, bob on, then ran wide on the second. And what I should have done was just stay calm, take a big deep breath, made sure I continued to look where I was going, and just applied a little bit of counter steer and just trusted those damn tyres. And I didn't. And I ended up putting the bike upright, slamming all on, ended up locking the rear, ended up power sliding down the road, and then ended up having to dump the bike on the grass, and I ended up straight over the handlebars and hit a tree. So yeah, take your time, don't rush it, and make sure that when you are riding out with friends or with groups, make sure that you are riding within your ability and riding your own ride. And that's absolutely crucial, riding your own ride and making sure that you're not trying to keep up with other people. Because when you start to do that, you end up riding beyond your own capabilities, and that's where things end up going wrong. I have a little bit of a mental thing when I ride. Because I've ridden quite a few years, I have in my own head a gauge where I know that if I'm riding at 100% my own ability, this is how I ride. So I make sure that I only ride at 50 to 60% of my ability. So I then know that when something arises in front of me, whether it's a car that comes out of nowhere, another car that's gone on the wrong side of the road, I know that I can mentally step it up to 80% ability and get myself out of danger, and then dial it back down to the 50-60%. That's how I tend to work. And in my own head, I then know that even if I get to 80%, I've still got a little bit of leeway left. And I think that just comes with a bit of experience and putting yourself in those situations sometimes that are inevitable when you are riding as well. You will inevitably get put in different situations, some good, some bad. But the one thing, right, and I don't think it's ever talked about, is trusting your own intuition. I've had some extremely, extremely weird scenarios. There's one of the videos on our YouTube channel where I'm riding from Cardiff all the way to Conway, riding the Spine of the Dragon. I did that in I think it was October, November time. And I was riding along and I was making progress. I wasn't breaking any major speed limits, but I was making progress. And I remember cranking it over around this left-hand corner, and as I was going around that left-hand corner, something said to me, "Watch out for the red van." And I thought to myself, what red van? And then as I came around the corner, a red van came straight across me. If you actually go onto the channel, you actually see the red van. Believe it's red. This is where I'm proven wrong. The red van cut across me, and you kind of see me go, what the? That kind of what the was more like, one, why the hell would you just pull out and you've seen me? But two, how the hell did my intuition know that there was something there? Anyway, trust your gut, trust your intuition. Absolutely. Another one, buying the wrong bike. The bike that you want and the bike that you need aren't always the same. I know when I first wanted to move from the 125s up to the bigger bikes, I wanted an R1 and I wanted one of the original Aprilia RSV Millis. Those are the two bikes that I wanted, but I knew that wasn't really where I should be at. My ability wasn't there for those types of bikes and that kind of power and that kind of sensitivity. I mean, I still moved to a GSX-R 600 S-Rad, and they are pretty bloody quick bikes, 110 horsepower. I mean, that's if it's still got the 110 ponies. But yeah, still very, very quick bikes. So making sure that you're buying the bike that's right for you, not the one that you want, if that makes sense. Yeah, picking the bike that you need rather than the one that you you aspire to have straight away, and building yourself up gradually to that. Making sure that you're picking a bike that's, for some people that are more vertically challenged, making sure that you can actually sit on the bike and feel comfortable. I can't imagine. I mean, I'm fairly tall. I'm about 6 foot, so there's not many bikes that I sit on and I think, ooh, that's a bit tall. But yeah, for those that are slightly more vertically challenged, definitely make sure you feel comfortable sat at set traffic lights with your feet on the floor. That's the main thing. Insurance as well. Insurance. Do you know, I always find this with insurance companies that irrespective of how long you've been riding, when you move from any bike, you could even move from an R1 back down to a 600. When you made that move, that bike, the new bike to you, ends up costing you more than the first one. It always does. And I swear that insurance companies sit there and they go, do you know what? It's a new bike. He's going to crash it. So let's just put the premiums up. They won't take into consideration the fact that actually the bike they had before was way more desirable and a hell of a lot faster. They just don't seem to take that too much into account. So yeah, just be mindful. I mean, I've always found that insurance for bikes has been fairly reasonable. I think off the top of my head, my current bike, which is the MT-09, 2016, and I've had that a good number of years now, but I don't think that cost me more than £150, £160 for the year, fully comp. So, but I guarantee you, if I went and bought another bike and insured that, it would absolutely double or triple, and that'd be that for the first year of owning that bike. But another one is weather reality. I mean, this one, you know, again, dressing for the ride, you know. And, you know, I know when I've done long distance trips, I have it in my head, oh, it's going to be this type of weather. And I always plan for the worst. Maybe that's the kind of negative kind of planning in my own head, maybe. But I always plan for the worst. So many times I've been caught out. I did a ride, I think, during the summer last year, and it was beautiful weather. And it was some ex-colleagues of mine, and they said, "Do you want to head over to Helmsley and go for a bit of ride?" I said, "Yeah, of course we'll." So I met up with them, and we had some food and talked about bikes a little bit. And then we started riding. It was beautiful, and all of a sudden the heavens opened, and it just absolutely lashed it down. I was wearing my full gear, so I was dry. However, it rained that bloody hard. The water got between the visor and kind of pushed itself into the helmet. I have never, ever been that wet in all my life. But I would never, ever have expected those conditions when I set off. And I think that's what's really important, is just making sure that you are prepared for all eventualities. And numerous times when I've done like long distance rides and I've set off and I've thought to myself, oh, the weather looks great. I get on the motorway and you see it just absolutely tipping it down in front. And a couple of times I've pulled off. I've either stopped and had a coffee and let the rain pass, or I've stopped to put an extra waterproof layer on to keep myself, to make sure I'm dry for the rest of the day. I think that's just really, really important. One thing that isn't really talked about is confidence in the rain. And I think that doesn't come unless you ride in the rain, and ride quite a bit in the rain. I know quite a few people that kind of, as soon as it starts to rain, they absolutely panic, and you can see they get really, really tense, and then you can see they start to make silly mistakes, or they just completely avoid the rain at all. I think it's really important to try and get out and ride in lots of different conditions. And then cold hands and fatigue. Cold hands we've already kind of touched on, especially riding in the winter. It is a nightmare. Some people that will be old enough that heated grips weren't really a thing. I remember when I used to ride to work, and this would be in all conditions. And it was winter, and I was riding into Leeds, and my hands had gone numb. I couldn't feel a damn thing. And I remember pulling over, putting the side stand down, and just holding the exhaust with a gloved hand. Don't do it with no gloves, but gloves, just holding the exhaust, and just to try and warm my hands up. And then when you're worried about that, you just take the gloves off and rest them on the exhaust and leave the engine to tick over, and then put the gloves back on. They're just warmed up a little bit. But yeah, absolutely important just to keep your hands warm. Visibility. Now, I never ever wore the what are they called now? I've got one here, wasn't it? Pin lock insert. Do you know what? Sometimes I swear I have like a brain fart and I end up just like forgetting stuff. Yeah, I never ever used to use the pin lock inserts. However, for a good number of years now, especially in pretty rough conditions, I will always wear a pin lock insert. There's nothing worse than riding down a motorway and having to in the winter and having to put a thumb's gap underneath, the gap to keep the airflow near your face, to keep your visor from misting up. The pin lock inserts work an absolute dream. I'll try and show the camera, but you can't really see it. You can just see a little bit of a clip there, and then inside it works very much like your double glazing at home, and it ends up creating like an air gap between two pieces of plastic or glass in the case of your windows at home, and it stops it from misting up. Around the pin lock insert will mist up, but your direct vision will not mist up. And honestly, if you haven't got one, get one, especially for winter riding. It's just an absolute game changer. You don't want to be sitting there on a motorway with a thumb gap, with the visor lifted just by a thumb, and letting freezing cold air hit your face and your eyes, because you'll very, very easily get distracted. And then this one is an interesting one, because I think this comes from riding roads typically that you maybe have ridden before, especially like country roads. We end up in these situations when we're riding on country roads. You might think to yourself, I've been down this road before and just turn left, turn right. And we get a bit complacent and we just assume that there's no risk, there's no new risks. And the one thing that I'm always aware of is smells. And for two reasons. When you're riding down a road, and you can see the advantage of riding a bike. You're not sat in a cage. You can smell the air around you. So you can smell it when it starts to get cooler and damper, so you know it's going to rain. Or you can smell horse shit. Or you can smell like a tractor's been up and down the road up ahead. So you know to be really careful of like mud on the road. Or you turn around a corner and there's a tractor coming out of a field. Just using all your senses. Even for like, you can be able to smell oil. You think, hang on, there's a diesel on the road. Looking down, it's like, oh yeah, it looks like a rainbow. Right, I need to move off out of that area. Just realizing that you can be using all your senses. You smell a tractor, you smell shit. Slow down. You don't know what's around the corner. Things might have changed. And then the final one, which I think, if I'm honest, I've kind of touched a little bit on in the previous ones, but riding with an ego. Most riding mistakes come from the ego. Keeping up with faster riders in groups. Just don't do it. Ride your own ride. Make sure that you know the destination that you're meeting them to. So if you're going from point A to point B, know where point B is and know how to get there. And if you don't, use a sat nav. Don't feel like you have to keep up with them, because that is when the mistakes will happen, when you're riding beyond your own means. What's that old phrase? Your ambition outweighed your talent. I mean, you can't blame Casey Stoner for that when he said that to Valentino Rossi. And I think Nick from Jordan Bikes is right, and that one will go down in history. But yeah, riding beyond your comfort zone and peer pressure, like that kind of goes back to riding your own ride rather than having to ride in a group and feeling like you have to keep up. That's something that I'm really mindful of when I'm riding. I know a couple of riders that are faster than me, and then there's people that are a bit slower than me. And if I am making that kind of leap to kind of move on and get away, I'll just disappear, and then I'll say my byes and then I'll disappear. And I think it does come from people not wanting to look slow or stupid. And I think this is what's really important, is that when you are a new rider, you will feel that. You will feel that kind of pressure of, am I riding quick enough? Am I slowing them down? Do my chicken strips look shit? Am I wearing the right gear? are people going to take the piss out of me? Just stop. Ride your own ride your own bike, and ride with your own gear that you're comfortable with. Don't feel like you're under pressure to perform in any certain way. And this is where the confidence will come a lot quicker. You know, confidence comes from, riding your own ride at your own pace and building it up slowly. That's what's important, is just being out there and enjoying your own ride. Look, it has been amazing to sit here and talk to you again. Thank you so much for joining us on Talks and Tales. Please, please, please do like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And please do head over to Spotify if you want to listen to it in your car on your way to work. But yeah, look, please do engage with us. Thank you very much for giving us some tips and pointers on what things you want to hear from this podcast going forward. So thank you very, very much for that. And look, I'll leave you with one thing. So what's one thing that you wish someone told you before you started riding? But look, thank you very much, and looking forward to the next time. Keep it shiny side up, guys. Take care. Bye.